Welcome to the Edamame Anime Club, where we could be filming from The Wired or our current reality. I'm Alexander, and I'm joined by my co-host.
Steve, it was great to be here.
All right, before we get into it, uh, kanpai.
Kanpai. All right, what anime are we doing?
We're going to be doing a pretty old one today. It actually just had its 25th anniversary. It's called Serial Experiments Lain, and it came out in 1998. We decided to pick this one because it's October. We're doing horror-related anime, and I've always seen people talk about this one.
See, I've seen it on like a lot of people's top horror anime lists.
Mm-hmm.
It cracks the top whatever horror for some reason.
Like top 10 every time.
It always cracks it, and I mean, it was interesting.
Interesting.
But yeah, so 25 years.
25 years old, yes.
Oh, Jesus.
It does.
I didn't know it was that old.
Yeah, it actually holds up pretty well for being 25 years old.
No, agreed. It totally does. So, quick synopsis of this. So this anime, it starts off kind of good. It starts off with a 14-year-old high school student walking off a building, and a week later, member of her class are getting emails from her as she's deceased.
Yeah,
and then that's where we get the introduction into Lain, the main character of this anime, and she is one that takes that email and really just dives into what they call the wire with just the internet, though. For us.
Yeah,
and that's and after that it gets a little crazy. I mean, this I don't even know how it like.
It's very apt for its time because the internet was still pretty new and a lot of people weren't using it. Like 1998, I was a little kid back then.
Yeah, I didn't even think we had internet. I don't even remember dial-up that much. I was a teenager for dial-up.
I definitely remember dial-up.
But yeah, I mean, all right. So let's get a little background information.
Yeah. Here. Okay. So background information. Serial Experiments Lain was produced by Yasuyuki Ueda and written by Chikai J. Konaka and directed by Ryutaro Nakamura. It was animated by Triangle Staff and features original character designs. The series was broadcast for 13 episodes from July to September 1998. This anime received the Excellence Prize at the Japan Media Arts Festival in 1998.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. One of the interesting things I was reading about it was as during its development, Serial Experiments Lain was conceived as a series so original to the point that it was considered an enormous risk by the company. Like the producers and then had to do a lot of convincing that this would be good.
I don't know in what universe, like who they had to convince, but that was probably the hardest pitch. I would love to be in the room when they were pitching this idea because it is a stretch.
Yeah, for sure. So Ueda had to answer repeated questions about a statement he made in an America interview where he claimed that Lain was a, quote, a sort of culture war against American culture and the American sense of values versus what we, Japan, adopted after World War II. He later explained in numerous interviews that he created Lain with a set of values that he viewed as distinctly Japanese, and he hoped that Americans would not understand the series in the same way that a Japanese person would.
So you're saying that, like, if I'm watching anime and there's another edamame anime club in Japan,
yeah,
our views would be totally different.
So apparently, yeah. Which I could see at the time, maybe 25 years ago.
He's referring to World War II, though.
Yeah, the values after World War II.
1944. Yeah. I mean, like, what? How old is this guy? But like, this is like, he's holding on to that, which is interesting enough.
Yeah.
Because like World War II.
Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Another interesting thing is that this anime is like kind of being accused as being heavily influenced by Neon Genesis Evangelion. Like even when I was going through some of the reviews, a lot of people were just saying, "Oh, it's just trying to copy Neon Genesis Evangelion." It even says that the authors were asked if they had been influenced by Neon Genesis Evangelion in its themes and design. This they strictly denied by the writer Chikai Konaka in an interview, saying that he had not even seen Evangelion until he finished the 4th episode of Lain.
I don't see too much of a comparison on those. I mean, and everyone knows that it is anyone. My favorite anime is Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Yeah.
But really, I don't see the comparison in sense. There's just more depth to it. Yeah, some of the character design, like not the way they look, but their uh, the way they're so detached from reality.
Mhm.
That's just a general theme that you can use. There's no way there's a big comparison. One also has mecha in it,
Yeah.
so
The only overarching idea that I seem kind of similar is the human instrumentality project.
exactly,
That's the only.
yeah, like converging your consciousness into. Well, we're giving away too much here,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know who's saying that, but yeah, maybe you should watch both of them again side by
Side by
side.
side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that might be the only way to understand this one.
All right, that's all the interesting things that I found about this anime. So you want to go into our reviews?
Yeah, yeah, we can jump into the reviews. I really, man, I couldn't tell you how I would view this without um, spoiling too much, but I will just say that from the majority of it, I thought it was a great watch. I mean, there was so much to it. It definitely, I feel like if you did a rewatch on this, and you might feel differently about it because it does feel like while you watch it, you know, as it is, you're watching it literally. Maybe if you take it from a more metaphorical standpoint, maybe it has like more of an attachment to you. So I
Yeah.
would give this a. Man, I feel like if I rate it too low, everyone's like, you didn't understand it. But if I rate it high, everyone's like, oh, you're being pretentious. So I'm gonna give this because to me, I don't think I'm gonna do a rewatch. 3.25 at Amami's.
3.25.
Yes, I know. So I
Hmm.
that would just show you how much it's not comparable to Neon Genesis. What about you?
So one of the things that I really liked about this is just the all the ideas that it brings to it. It's very highly interpretable
Mhm.
and highly up to interpretation. Like I think that everyone will come up with different uh, you know things that they gather from it. With they have several overarching like philosophical points like
Yeah.
um, it's has to do with the internet, which is new at the time, and we've had a lot of culture where these ideas have already been explored, but at the time it was pretty unique. I would say this about the anime: you gotta watch it like a few episodes at a time, and then like let it like you have to mull it over. Like this is something that you should like try to run through it.
Yeah, it's funny for us, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, if y'all don't know this, we actually watched the full season
yeah,
before we filmed. Like we legit watched that whole season.
yeah,
Every
yeah,
anime we've done on this show, we've watched that week prior,
yeah.
like in its entirety
Yes,
up until
yes.
filming.
So it's fresh in our
Yeah,
minds.
because also it just like we've had practice runs where we try to film an episode or a season we've seen before, it didn't work out.
Yeah, well,
So
I had finished it like a month or two ago, and I've
yeah,
already been watching other anime.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're starting
it's
to
difficult.
blend. But yeah, this one is one that you definitely, if you ever want to talk about, you got to watch it. It has to be fresh.
Yeah,
You can't watch this like 2 months ago and
yeah.
bring it up now.
This is not an anime you should binge either.
It,
Like you definitely need to watch a few episodes, mull it over, a couple more episodes. Like
yeah, yeah, you got to decompress. You
yeah,
said that earlier
yeah,
today.
decompress. Yeah.
But really, also, I mean, we were reading about this. This is supposedly one of the most confusing anime.
Oh, and
Yeah.
it really was confusing.
Yeah, I definitely was confused majority of the time. Yeah, they did a good job clearing up some of the stuff, but I
Hmm.
feel like there were still some unanswered questions, and I think they were meant to be like that.
Yeah, but as far as for me, I really enjoyed it. My rating I'm gonna give it is 4.25 Enemames. Yeah.
Jesus, you're lying.
No, there was the only thing I didn't like was the build up. Once it hits like episode 6, like it just every episode to me just got better and better and better. Like
Okay.
I legitimately enjoyed it. Like I was excited to see it. First episode, I was kind of not really feeling it. And then the second episode, that's when it kind of grabbed me and I was interested in it. And then like my interest just like I was excited to see the next episodes. Like I liked it.
Okay. I mean, I did enjoy it, but
Yeah.
this might be the first one. I don't think of anyone where I rated it below you.
I think that's true. Normally I
Yeah,
rate my anime below you. Yeah.
yeah, because you're more from a critical eye, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is
Yeah.
cool. They have
Yeah.
they're good dialogue.
I liked the philosophical point, the open interpretation. This is definitely an anime that you can has rewatch potential, and once you kind of know, I think there might be some like hidden interpretations too. Like
Oh
since
yeah,
now that we've rewatching it in the critical eye, before it was like confusing. Now that we know what happens, I bet you there's some things that you can
yeah, some
gather off of
nice
it.
Easter eggs in there.
Yeah,
But I definitely maybe that's why I don't like it because it's to a level of being like too metaphorical to me, and I'm like, they've already beat that down with the hammer. And it's the last few episodes we've done have been very like super themed.
yeah,
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. I mean, that's 3.25, 4.25.
4.25.
Yeah, that's pretty high rating, man. So
Yeah, I think that's the second highest rating I've given an
I
anime that we've
agree. Yeah, I
done.
agree. Dude. I guess you really liked it. All right.
Yeah,
So,
no, I did like it.
what are the people saying about it? Give us some reviews.
All right. I'm gonna start out with a 5 out of 10 review. This one's done by VMania 21786. He says, smart themes without a solid narrative backbone add up to a snooze fest. This is one of those shows people find excuses for being horrendous just because it touches on some interesting philosophical or psychological concepts, as if that excuses horrible storytelling, non existent characters with no arcs whatsoever, poor animation, awful pacing, and a dozen other problems that this show has. It is just not in any way a compelling narrative. To all those who like this show, answer me this. What is Lain like? She is kind of introverted, I guess. Anything else? No. You sure? What kind of personality traits does she have? And this is the protagonist we were talking about. That's what I mean when I say the show has no characters. They're all just vessels, marionettes, twisted and turning by the writers to make whatever choice is needed for the nonsensical plot to progress. This show does indeed touch on some really smart themes, but none of them are realized or actually lead anywhere. You can forget about drawing any sort of conclusion, clear or not.
Okay. One of the big things that came out, this guy he spent days writing this. He had an editor. He like sent it off. He used like Grammarly to check it. Yeah, no shit. Lain is introvert. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Like, her character design is that she's an introvert and her persona
exists online.
Is not, and that's a huge theme with it.
Yeah.
So no spoilers here, but that was the main point. Is that she's an introvert and her persona is not an introvert. It's what's extrovert.
Yeah, extrovert. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the main point of her character design.
Yeah.
So that's already kind of like red flaggish for me.
Yeah. Maybe some of the other characters can kind of be like two dimensional, but like the story's about Lain. We're like, it's not really telling the story of her friends Alice or like her father or sister. Like they're supporting cast. As far as yes, it does touch on some smart themes, but I think that there is a lot of conclusions you can draw from this.
Oh yeah, you could spend days, and that's the whole point.
And that's one of the reasons I liked it when I was taking. It's up to individual interpretation. This guy, I don't know, he's trying to be high IQ about it and doesn't understand it. It's kind of my
yeah. Well, what's the when was this? Does it show the date on when it was posted?
Let me see. I'm not seeing it. I think if I went back and looked at it,
no worries about it. Because that might turn.
He wrote this in April 2021. There it is. There it is. Yeah. He didn't even write it back then.
I feel like if he wrote it in like 99, it would make more sense. Yeah.
No, this is a fresh review.
So, yeah, that's pretty funny. All right. Well, that's my critique on him.
Yeah. 5 out of 10. That's what he rates.
5 out of 10. All right. What's the next one?
All right. This guy, done by Moliga, he rates Serial Experiments Lain a 10 out of 10. Woefully unknown piece of anime. Serial Experiments Lain is a great anime series. It is not godly perfect or anything, but it gets up there, way up there. From the killer opening title sequence, which is a great opening song by the way, to the strange sequences with the strange previews and sequences, they only consist of girls talking or her body parts for the next show. Lain certainly has a fairly unique style, but it goes beyond style and gets into substance. Spicing elements of Matrix-style cyberpunk, X-Files conspiracy, and the David Lynch-esque surreal, Lain is like the wired world it portrays, a synthesis of disparate ideas and personas, all thrown into a blender for the viewer to interpret. The interpretation's the thing, and those looking for action or comedy may come away slightly disappointed. After 13 episodes, there will probably be more questions than answers, but that's just like real life, isn't it?
Ooh, all right. We ended up with a question.
Yeah.
No, it's not straightforward. Yeah, I mean that was a lot of. He's right. I mean, I really agree with a lot of things he's saying.
Yeah.
Especially when he talks about the song.
Oh yeah, dude, the song is
good. Yeah, it's good. It gives me Roswell vibes. I'll show you that song later. you probably gonna. It might be the same band. I'm not even kidding.
I went and looked it up. I know the song's called. See, I'm gonna butcher it now.
Yeah.
I know it's written by Boa. I want to say the song's called Deuce.
Did I write it down? I might have wrote it down. No, I didn't write it down. But anyways, great song.
Yeah, it might have actually been it might be a cover by Boa on this anime. Like it might be an original opening and it was covered by Boa. That's all I remember about it.
It was good. It was a good opening. I mean, but we won't get into that yet. But like, so he said that was a really good point. I mean, and he's right. Like there is so much leaving on this like questioning part, and I think a lot of good anime people might perceive it as lazy writing, but I think for majority of the time when they do that, it's actually leaves us just wanting more,
Hmm.
and I think that's the point.
Yeah. It also does come full circle at the very end, which I guess is why it kind of leaves things
Yeah,
unanswered.
yeah,
But again, up to the interpretation.
agreed. So I think that was a pretty good review. I don't know about a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, and he even says it's not perfect, so he should have given it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. I mean, come on, yeah,
yeah,
no, go back on your own word.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean that was yeah. All right, so I mean, you got anything else before we jump into this episode?
that's it. Let's jump into the spoilers.
All right, guys, spoilers. So if you have not seen Serial Experiment of Lane, did I say that right?
It's just serial experiments with a colon then Lane. Serial
Okay,
experiments Lane.
Serial Experiments Lane. If you haven't seen it yet, make sure to check it out, guys. I mean, I do recommend it.
Yeah,
I think everyone should watch this one.
yeah,
And hands down, even if you're not, yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about, even if you're not an anime fan, you should watch it. Questionable, but everyone that likes anime, definitely check it out. You probably have in your own your own conclusion to it,
yeah,
and write down in the chat. Let us know. Watch it, come back, and finish the episode.
yeah.
All right, let's get into the spoiler section. All right, so it really starts off with the bang. I honestly, well, let's get into the things really quick on the outside. The intro music, fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic.
The opening,
Even the opening animation, like it's like you could tell it was animated in the '90s, but that doesn't detract from like the story at all.
oh no,
Yeah,
I
not
mean,
at all.
it just shows that like it's not it took time.
Yeah, I think one of my first comments to you while we were watching the open was like, "Man, this thing's actually kind of sick." Like, I bet you the people in 1988 are like, "Holy shit! Like, this is good."
Their minds are blown.
Yeah,
I didn't like certain animations for some reason. It was really bright.
yeah,
And I know what you're thinking, like, oh, bright, like the sun's always, no, like the buildings were bright. Like it
yeah.
was like it didn't like it was bright for no reason.
For me, it was going for that surreal aesthetic, and that's what
Possibly.
it was.
Yeah, I just didn't like it, generally speaking.
Yeah,
Like, but I mean, other than that, the animation's really good. I mean, the way they drew like background characters that were in the far, they drew them like just kind of like really just shapes, which is
yeah.
fine
I was
for
gonna
the
say
90s.
blurry, but yeah,
Yeah, and it's fine. I really like that because again, nowadays they just use CGI, so they did a lot of cool stuff with that. I mean, a lot of animation, the way they did that, the way they drew Lane, well, the way they did the technology, it was all really like it took a while to make.
yeah.
So it was really good.
And honestly, Lane kind of gives you some like off-putting vibes with the way they animate like her eyes, really, which I kind of liked.
You said that, and then later on, there was a zoom in on Alyssa's eyes,
Hmm.
and you see kind of the same way they did it with the pupils, not necessarily dilating, but more refined.
Yeah.
So they did do that with her, but I saw what you meant about the whole eyes
Hmm.
and the way they did the animation. So animation, intro music, outro music.
Outro, I skipped that. Like I watched it a few times, and after that, I was just skipping it.
It was pretty ass. The credits roll and it just like zooms out from like a like laying down in like the fetal position, and I just didn't like it. It wasn't for me. I didn't. I did. You watched it a couple times. I watched it like twice. I said I'm done.
Yeah, that was me.
I don't want to watch it. So first, personally, I didn't think it was great. But all right, now we can kind of get in the episode. So
Yeah.
the title cards. What do you think about them?
I thought they were interesting.
I didn't like them.
I didn't like the guy saying present day, present time at the start of every episode. They should have edited that out. But I didn't mind the title cards. It was just kind of to me adding to like the mysteriousness of like the thing. Like all the episodes are themed basically, right? Right. So like the first episode is actually called Weird.
Yeah, and the way he says it's like he says like it doesn't say episode 1. It's like layer 1.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. Well, the thing they're going for is the layers. Is like to me, it's in programming. You kind of build a program up in layers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I got the layers part. I just didn't like the title cards.
Yeah, I liked them.
And it was more like it just to me it was like it was like uneasy, and I think that was what they're going for.
Yeah, that definitely.
All right, so let's get to the first episode. So really, it starts off with the with Chisa
Chisa, yeah,
walking, just wandering around, and walks off of a roof, and obviously deletes herself.
yeah, and she says something right before she does it. She says to be with God, I don't need my human body, or something to that effect. Like she's
Oh, yeah.
trying to go somewhere. Like she's like, I don't need to be in the physical world.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah.
Hey, that makes zero sense if you're watching that person.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but it does tell a story about what's going to happen, and then after that, a message gets sent out from her,
Mhm.
and that's where we start off with Lane. I mean, Lane just doesn't have what do they call the computers? They call it that.
navies,
Y-
which actually I think they're going short for like navigation or
That's what I was
navigator.
thinking
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Like navigation, like going to where
yeah.
you want to be.
But yeah, they're
Yeah,
called
they're
navies.
called navies, and so her computer. So all the computers are called navies, and she gets a mysterious message from Chisa.
Who's already been dead for like a week. And
Yeah.
like not only it's actually it's like a rumor spreading around schools like it has to be a prankster, her friends are saying.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and then she doesn't even use the Navi. Like Lane isn't even part of like I guess the it's the internet, but they call it the wired. She
yeah,
doesn't use the social media aspect of it or whatever. She's not connected at all. And her friends are asking her like did you also get the email? Like I got the email, and like one of them's crying too because it was her friend.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so she doesn't even like have a computer like it's plugged in, but it's like it's just storage at that point. It's
Yeah.
just stored up on her table.
Yeah.
She had to move stuff around to
Yeah,
access
she
it.
doesn't use it. Yeah.
So and then so she does walk home, and we get to introduce a couple people. So we do get a. I don't think Allison is a parent here. She probably wasn't there, but it wasn't really making a big like we didn't even know they were like best friends or even
Oh
friends at
yeah, yeah,
that.
Alice. Yeah, no.
So we didn't get that, but we do get a nice, interesting parent dynamic.
Yeah,
So the first thing is the mom is so detached,
yeah, it's completely detached.
like like oblivious, like because it starts off. She says, "I got an email from a dead girl today."
Yeah,
And what does she? She doesn't say
I
anything.
don't think she just ignores her.
She like doesn't even acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And the dad, was your dad like this? The way he,
I said, Dad seems like a piece of shit, overly engrossed in the Wired. Like all he cares about is the Wired. Like he's like got like 6 monitors, like a 6 setup in his room from 1998, and like Lane walks in there and basically starts asking him the same thing, like questions about the Wired,
yeah,
and he's like gushing over the Wired, like he's obsessed about it, like kind of just ignoring Lane. Like she just said the word Wired, and he's like, oh yeah, and starts turning on his computer and doing stuff.
yeah, and it's just it's like so it's like a whole that the temperature in that room is probably like 120 degrees. There's so
Yeah.
many monitors, so many different computer parts. So we do get that, and then we also get the introduction of her sister, who
Yeah.
I like that character.
Yeah.
She served her a good purpose.
Yeah. She seems like she doesn't like Lane at all. Like they're complete opposites. Like
Yeah, like I think that's the dynamic of
yeah.
the sibling dynamic back in the '90s. I mean, it was like, oh, bratty little sister, oh, adolescent, a teenage sister.
Yeah.
So I think that was what they're going for. I mean, same thing
Yeah.
with probably you and your brother, me and my brother, where we were just always bickering, and it just seems like they don't have a relationship.
Yeah.
Yet.
For sure. For sure.
And yeah, and that's really all I have
Yeah.
left. Is there anything else I missed?
Yeah. No. Honestly, episode 1 was a very slow start.
Yeah,
Like that. Everything we engrossed like took 20 minutes. Like there's a lot of like surrealist shots where it's just like Lane like kind of just like staring off into space and stuff like that, or just walking down the sidewalk. Weird stuff like that. Like just weird stylization.
Yeah, and I like where it's going to because
Yeah.
this next episode, or when keeps
Yeah.
progressing with the friend group that they have, she has a little friend group. Alyssa's in it,
Yeah.
and there's 2 other girls that are kind of like mean girls.
Yeah. It is kind of like Mean Girls.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're really kind of like like pushy, pressure
Yeah.
her to, and they this is where I started kind of like, all right, what's going on here? It's not the real world. They're like, let's go to a club.
Siberia, Club Siberia.
Club Siberia. So they go to Club Siberia, and yeah, I mean it's a little interesting in
Yeah.
a sense because now she does get a Navi.
Yeah. Now, yeah, she asked her dad for a Navi.
Which,
I think this happens like halfway through the episode, but the episode actually starts with like, and I don't really know why they did this. They start with this dude like taking like a pill, which is like a drug, but it's like a computer chip, and it like makes him like trip.
oh
And
yeah,
and I guess that's what they're doing in Siberia. Like he's in Club Siberia, and like a waitress like gives him like a drug deal or whatever, and it has like this whole thing about it.
yeah,
Um,
and he does serve a purpose. I mean, or later on in the show, and I think we'll touch base on that, is that when she does invite a little boy over to her house, she tries to make him eat some type of computer chip.
yeah, that's way later.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's
we'll touch
later,
we'll touch
yeah,
on that.
but that's kind of like referring back to that, like
Yeah.
about like whatever that's supposed to do to you. But there's probably something with that. But he does lose his mind. But I was thinking after later on. So am I skipping? Am I going too far?
I don't know what you're gonna say.
I was going to talk about the deletion of himself with the gun.
See, I don't. Is that the same character? I don't know if it is or isn't.
Yeah, it's the same
Oh, it is the same
character. Yeah,
character.
he
Oh,
loses
okay.
his mind. But I was thinking, like, what if he now realizes that he is dealing with, suffering from what Lane eventually suffers for, or maybe what other people are suffering, where they don't know if they're part of the Wired or if they're part of reality,
Yeah.
and maybe that whatever he took,
Oh, that definitely does. Yeah. No, that definitely played a part. Even like during the episode, like even like Lane's like hallucinating, even though she's not taking any drugs or anything like that. Like she's like seeing things or
Oh yeah, yeah.
like I forget exactly how they do it, but like she, she's walking and like the sidewalk or like the sky will be like morphing into like a cybernetic or like I don't know if she was hearing voices at this point, but
Uh,
she I wrote down she's hallucinating, so like some
yeah,
shit was
she's
happening.
seeing like visions.
Yeah,
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 she's definitely like something's happening there.
yeah,
So she gets pressured into going to the Siberia, but they're 14 by the way.
yeah. They're in junior high is what they
Yeah,
say.
they're
So
four,
that's that's
they,
it.
do,
Yeah,
they do
14.
touch it.
Yeah,
She's 14 years old.
yeah,
She's 14 years old going to a club,
yeah.
and I'm just like,
And the friends actually pressure her into going to the club because they saw her at the club already.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly. They're like, you were already there,
yeah.
which does tie into later on because
Mhm.
and like you. So they're like, you were there. We know you were there. She's like, I wasn't. Very timid and whatnot. So yeah, and she get pressure and she goes to the club and that happens and really it ends kind of interesting. The episode ends with like the shooting happening and
Yeah,
she's walking up to the shooter like while before he shoots himself. Then he does it and
yeah.
it's a cool scene.
Yeah, actually, he's pointing the gun at Lane, right? And he actually calls Lane a scattered god, and that he's going to reject the Wired, that he doesn't like the Wired, and then he kills or deletes himself.
Yeah, and the way they do it is pretty cool with the laser beam.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, and Lane for whatever reason, like she's already the introvert, and she just walks right up to him as he's like everyone's running away, and even like her friends are like, "What are you doing? Like Lane, get out of there!" Like even Alice, I think Alice runs up next to her
yeah,
and is trying to pull her away, but Lane like walks up and I don't know what he says to him, or if she just confronts him or whatever, and he's like pointing the gun at Lane, and then like he's saying like he's seen her before, like he recognizes from the Wired and like is rejecting it, and then he you know does
yeah.
himself in.
Yeah, so I mean that was that. So the very first two episodes,
Yeah.
very themed in like deletion of this
Yeah.
one. So
Yeah, and that second episode is actually called Girls.
yes,
So
it was called
it's all about
about the friend group.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a really cool. And so from right from the beginning, I'm already invested.
Yeah, episode 2, like episode 1 like I said was slow, but episode 2 at the very end I was like, okay, like this is getting interesting now.
Yeah, yeah, and again, we really know nothing yet of anything, but
Yeah.
I do think the Navi is delivered or is like waiting for her, and she goes to the club instead, and now it's sitting there, and she wants to build it, and her dad's like, "We'll do it later," and then they end up building it together, or he builds it for her,
Yeah.
one or the other.
He's like, I want it built. He's like, I'll do it after dinner, and Lane's like, I want it built now. Could you just do it now? And then she's
Yeah.
like, oh, you've caught the bug, huh? And then he like does it for her.
Yeah, which is really cool. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Great father that is. funny about him. So now in episode 3, she does start hearing voices, and that's whenever she gets something. She gets a gift. Did you write it down what she gets?
Let me see.
She's given a gift. They said like you left this here, or somebody in the club gives it to her in like an envelope.
Oh, yes.
Would I couldn't spell it, so it's called a prosciutto.
Oh, I didn't write that down.
It's called a prosciutto, and she's been hearing voices about this the whole time, and she gets this prosciutto, which is an upgrade,
Hmm.
and that's kind of where it starts with her build,
Yeah.
with her computer build. So she gets this prosciutto that she doesn't even know. Like this is yours. You left it here. She was not. She was like, I did. Like she was so lost, and she walks up, and this is where we get to introduce another character known as Toto.
Yeah.
And she's like, "What is this?" He's like, "You got a prosciutto? Like, how'd you get one?"
Yeah.
It's a cool, and she's just basically explaining how cool it is, and she takes home and then upgrades.
Yeah.
Did you notice a lot of the romance scenes?
If you want to call them romance.
Well, there was a lot of like kissing. I put kissing.
In episode 3?
All of it throughout the entire show.
Well, I know her husband, the dad and the mom kiss, which was just like really awkward. Like,
yeah. Well, also the mom and dad are kissing, but in the very first episode, it's like the guy that's walking down the alley. He's like tonguing down this like girl that he's walking down the alley with before Shizo steps off. He's like kissing. He's the one that catches the body. But
okay.
I saw that there's multiple scenes where there's like kissing going on around like the situations that are happening.
I didn't really catch that, which is I don't know.
There's 4 scenes for sure that happen.
Yeah, maybe that's one of those things where like you would notice on the rewatch.
Yeah, possibly. I just was like, all right,
Yeah.
very intimate. Maybe detachment, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So basically, like Lain is like, she gets this chip and she installs it, and she's like getting more invested into like the Navi and the Wired. And as she's on there, people are calling her like Lain of the Wired. Like people are like recognizing her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she so the prosciutto gives us full access to the wire now.
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah,
it
that's
is.
what it is.
So
Yeah.
it gives her full access to the wire, And then also we get to introduce these like agents or that are watching her while she
Yeah.
walks, like creepy guy staring at lamp pole, watching her walk away.
Yeah.
And at this point, Lain is just a human. Like, she's just a person.
Yeah.
She really is just a 14-year-old girl.
Mhm.
So that happens, and she starts running, and she's like, they're just following her with like these red lights.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They got like these goggles. They're like Men in Black characters, and in the episode they're talking about these knights. So it's like they're like this like super secretive group that's on the Wired. Yeah. So like I was kind of thinking that these guys are the knights.
Yeah, so they do introduce the term knights, and knights. We'll get into them a little more, but they gave me like Sons of Liberty.
Oh yeah,
like the Patriots, Sons of Patriots, like the top guys that oversee everything. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
And we get into them a little bit further down the line about the knights, which they have a good. They're great. Like what they like, they're not like they're like the best.
Yeah.
And they're, in my opinion, they're kind of the villains at this point.
Yeah, no, they definitely are the antagonists. Like Lain doesn't trust them. She's running from them. They're like following her in her car, and yeah, they got like this weird like they're wearing like goggles, and it's got like a laser beam on it, like a red light, like kind of looks like a sniper. Like Lane's like.
So those were part of the knights. I don't think they're part of the knights.
They don't reveal. It's implied at this point. Yeah, they clarify that later.
Yeah. Okay.
But they're talking about the knights, and then all of a sudden there's these secret agents basically spying on Lain. You know, watching her walk to school and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that episode is called Psycho.
Psych,
even better.
Yeah, psych. So it's like probing into the psych, and the theme of this is like Lain is using the Navi more often. And the last note that I wrote down is people call her Wild Lain, and they're recognizing her on the internet. So like it's already starting there to show you that she's got a separate persona online. Like she's real reserved, sitting on the computer in the Navi, but in her online persona is like different. But
she's very popular.
Yeah.
I even put that. I said Lane's different personas.
And like I said, Wild Lain is what they said.
Are you saying wild?
Wild, WILD.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I didn't. I also point out he watched it subbed. I watched it dubbed.
Yeah, I did watch it subbed.
So really, there's going to be some things there.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but it's just fair warning on that. So some of the translations were not totally solid.
Yeah. She also says goodnight to the Navi, like after she's done using it. So.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't write that down, but that's kind of interesting. Yeah. So, all right, I'm really excited for this next episode because this really does bring in what we're really going after. This episode 4 it's called Religion.
Yes, religion.
And I really feel like there was some or a lot of religious themes in this show as a whole. You know, with the identity of like who's God and who's supposed to be God.
Yeah.
And they touch base on that. And then they even touch base on what an angel is a little bit. Not really too much, but they mention it. But there's a lot of God and religious themes.
They were saying, I can't really remember if it was this episode exactly, but they're saying like God in the real world doesn't exist, but God on the Wired does.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so they're implying that either like God from the real world of reality has either transitioned to the Wired or like there is only one God and he's on the Wired. One of the two.
Yeah. And I mean, it really just touches a little base on the Knights, and then we get into this idea of the Wired. But really, the main thing that I saw was this small Navi transform into this massive build.
Yeah, no,
it's starting to pop off.
Yeah, Lane's like homebrewing her own PC, like adding ridiculous shit to it. Like I think even her dad like walks into into her room and he's like shocked at like, you know, like I can't remember exactly how it looks, but she's like got, you know, PC parts scattered everywhere. Yeah. Like, you know, she's still starting to develop it. The PC setup was crazy. Like it's going nuts.
Oh yeah. And she's even, I believe, gets advice about it. She said they tell her, Taro says, be careful with static electricity.
Oh yeah.
And anybody that makes a build,
you know,
you gotta stay grounded. But she ends up like disrobing like her natural, like whatever she's wearing just like a nightgown.
Yeah.
To build her PC.
Yeah, and her sister even walks in and is like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Oh, or maybe her dad asked her. I don't know."
One of them, I think, one of them asked her about it, and she's just like static electricity. And then, you know, that was like the build. But really, that was the main thing that I got from that, is that she now has this new massive build, and she's really getting more into this wired Navi situation.
Yeah.
Anything else on that?
So they also start playing, like they start introducing this idea that all like the little kids are like kind of hip, and they're playing this game called Phantoma, I believe is what it's called.
Yeah, I called
eh
it net games. That's what they call the
Oh,
general name
really?
is net games.
Oh,
For
okay.
that's what they got in the English dub,
Yeah, yeah.
net games.
Yeah, but, it has a scene where, like, one of the kids is playing in it, and it's, like, looks kinda like Minecraft, like he's running through a
Yes.
maze or something. Um, isn't there, like, something following him or, like, it makes him, like, scared or he goes crazy? Because I wrote, there's a little girl killing people, by making them delete themselves. So I think
Oh.
he's, like, going crazy from playing this game.
Yeah, I could see that happening. I mean, it was a little more metaphorical than I thought, but I thought it was like Lane, like extrovert, like going in there and
Yeah.
yeah, and that was kind of
Yeah,
the
I did think it was Lane as
yeah.
well.
So there was that kind of idea that was going with it. If it's not her, then it's someone else.
Yeah. So there's continuing to blur the line between the wired and reality because, like, this little kid is, so terrified of whatever this game was or what happened that, he deletes himself. There's also another point in the episode where like Lane's like in her room and she can see like the red lasers
Oh
of
yeah,
of the uh of the men in black, whatever you want to call them. They might be the knights because they're talking about the knights.
yeah. Actually, this is when she's looking at the ceiling.
Yeah, she's looking at the ceiling and then she walks up to the window and sees the guys like looking at her, and then like one of the dudes like his little face set explodes and like he's bleeding. And so like it gives the impression that Lane did that like by looking at him.
You're right. There was something that happened as well around this. I'm not sure if it's the next episode or this one, but she's talking to the knights.
Uh
There's one episode in the beginning she's talking to the knights. I think this is it
yeah.
because at the very end of it, her and she sees those lasers on the roof and confronts the agents.
That's later in the episode.
Okay, so
That's
all right,
later.
so that's not the time you're
Yeah,
talking
no,
about.
this is a different
Okay,
one.
good, good.
So
It's
so
different.
there's a second confrontation. This all she does is look at the windows out of them and like his face goggles explode.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, and then it kind of ends with Lane had upgraded her PC a little bit more, and now she's got like fans like blowing on it, like she's that introduces that cooling aspect to her computer. So
Yeah, we start getting into the wire a little more. In episode 5, the sister starts to really get after it. Yeah, sister's going through it. That's what I wrote, and we really get an interesting scene with the sister of her just kind of like she's seeing herself
yes,
through the episode. She's seeing things that she should be seeing. She's really going through it, and it really, and I couldn't figure it out, but the weird scene is that when her fake self, or when her persona, or her fake persona and her real life merge, that is when she started really losing it.
yeah.
She started losing all reality.
You're talking
and
about Lane's sister, right?
Lane's sister. Yeah,
Yeah.
she starts losing her touch on reality. She starts going through it after that.
Yeah,
But it was the scene was her persona, her fake, her whatever she's imagining, and her real. They run into each other, and then they create this real person that's like lost.
yeah,
And I was thinking kind of like in cyberpunk and all these psychosis was what they called it on there.
yeah.
But other where she's like she's not sure if she's in there or not, so she's going like insane inside her brain.
Yeah, and this was actually really confusing to me, which it was meant to be,
Right.
right? Like, she's like hallucinating and appearing different places, and it's actually pretty unnerving. Like, she's actually keeps seeing this message about a prophecy. She's like,
Yeah.
fulfill the prophecy. Like someone hands her a note, and she's like, fulfill the prophecy. Like she thinks she sees Lane like out in the street. She thinks she sees Lane like on like a computer, or it was like a TV screen in the city,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And there was even a point where like she's like sitting at like a coffee table and she spills her coffee and then she starts hallucinating again and is like in school or something like in pitch black and like there's like she thinks someone's there. She's like, is somebody there? Like the doors like creaked open and she walks in there to see, and when she turns around, written on the door is fulfill the prophecy. So it's going heavily into that that thing, like she's hallucinating, and then
Yeah.
she finally makes it home, and who walks around the corner? It's the mirror image of herself.
Yeah. Well, she sees Lane and Lane acknowledges her. She's like, whatever her name is. What's it? Mickey?
Mika, I
Mika.
believe.
She was like, Mika. And she's like, oh, it's normal. And then her fake personification of Mika is there. And it's Mika, and Lane sees her, but not the real Mika.
Yeah,
And then that's when they
she sees the one that appears to be the real Mika, and but she's like faded and like kind of like a distorted illusion of herself.
Yes.
But that's the one that you would perceive as real looking at herself. And after that, the sister's never the same again.
Oh no, right. And that's on
Yeah.
episode 5. Like, so
Yeah.
we still have we
Yeah.
still have like 8 more episodes of her
Yeah.
just being that way.
Yeah. And this episode is actually called Distortion.
Yeah.
So
Oh, okay.
yeah. So
Perfect.
yeah, like I said, all the episodes are highly themed.
Yeah.
Um,
I got nothing on that one. I would like this next episode. I think really set the tone
yeah.
of the Knights.
Yeah. One of the things that I noticed on episode 5 was Lane's actually um gets on the computer, and the last thing she says right at the end of the episode, she says, "Who is it today?" And so that builds up into episode 6, which is called Kids.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
she said,
So
"Who's it today?"
yeah. So
Who do you think she meant by that?
I think she
Mika?
was talking. No, I think she's either talking about. I thought it was either herself, because she's got her online persona,
Okay.
or someone she's talking to. Like, who am I talking to today?
Oh, okay.
That I
That
think
makes sense.
that's the one more implied. That one's the more probable one.
I wrote that the outro makes sense now because now it makes sense that like you were wondering like, where she's in the fetal position in,
Yeah.
but we know now she's in her setup.
Yeah.
It's that big. It's that massive.
Yeah. One of the things that we missed on episode 5 is that there's also like a bunch of cyber attacks going on. Like someone's attacking the systems, like the cars. There's actually a death because the cars and the red lights
Oh,
don't work.
you're right.
Yeah.
You're
So
right.
so it's setting up this, the knights as like the cyber hackers.
Yeah.
That was also a prevalent
You're
theme.
right. So like the Knights now we know are these super crazy sick hackers that
Hmm.
are hacking into like the corporate
Yeah.
like the society corporate America basically, and
Yeah.
just changing light bulbs and just really causing like chaos.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you're right. That's the first introduction we know about more of the Knights is
Hmm.
that they are these hackers.
Yeah. And so I think when Lane says, "Who is it today?" I think she's talking to the knights.
Possibly because the
Yeah.
very next episode, who's she talking to?
The next episode's called Kids.
Yeah.
So at this point, episode 6 starts and like Lane's got a supercomputer in her room, like
Yeah.
like
Massive. I wrote setup, so that means
yeah. And she's talking to, I can't read what I wrote. Looks like kids who are her friends. Seems to be talking to the kids who are her friends. So she's, the episode starts out and she's just on her supercomputer talking to whoever, probably, from the previous episode. Who is it today? Now she's talking to him.
well, mine it said Knights.
Yeah. Oh no, you're right. I did say knights. That's
Okay,
what I
so
wrote. Knights.
they're talking. She's talking to the
She
Knights.
is talking to the knights. Yes.
She's fine. Like and like you got to think like Lain is just this 14-year-old girl,
Yeah.
and the Knights are these like international super hackers, and
Yeah.
they're talking to this 14-year-old girl right now, and she's like, "Oh, you guys are so friendly. You guys are all like basically just like praising them."
Yeah. Yeah.
And which really at the very end gets kind of crazy because well, what else happened in episode 6 that was like insane?
So while she's like walking down the street, like after she's done using the Navi, she's going to school. She sees like little kids like raising their hands up into the sky, right?
Oh.
And she's like, notices a few people doing that, and then she goes to school. She starts hanging out with her friends, and they go out to like have ice cream or whatever it is. And as they're walking around, one of her friends is like, "Hey, like, what's up with that guy?" And it's like there's like 2 or 3 other little kids that are all looking up into the sky. And she walks over there, and they look up, and it's Lain in the sky. Like
Oh,
Lain can see like it's like a mirror image, like almost like the clouds are parting and like a bright shiny light, like almost holy. And it's Lain. And what was crazy to me is that the other people can see her too. Like her friends see her, and they're like what's going on?
yeah. So they not only her friends, but like the whole world.
Yeah, the whole world can
Yeah,
see her.
they mentioned that later on because the news is talking about it.
Yeah. They don't know what happened, or if it's another prank, or like the hackers or the knights. But yeah, so like that's a big phenomenon that's happening. So I think now Lain is gonna go into the wire to try to figure out what's happening, because it's all over the news.
Yeah, and we get this scene with the same laser scene, right? With the lights at the ceiling.
Uh,
I don't know if you got that down, but she's talking to the Knights in the beginning and at the very end.
that's at the very end of the episode. So in between, we're skipping over some stuff. So she sees herself and she goes into the wire, and she's actually trying to figure out what game these kids are playing, because the kids are seeing her, and that's whenever they run into that Cheshire Cat character. She's trying to figure out, like, she's asking him like, what are the kids playing? He's like, "Oh, I'll help you, but not really." He's kind of like giving her riddles, and she finds like she's like in the Wired on the internet, and she like pulls up like a search page of like some crazy scientist, or the Cheshire Cat helps her find it, and it's this like scientist who murdered a bunch of kids, right?
Oh, you're right.
Right.
Yeah.
His name is Professor Hodgson, right? And they call him actually the child killer scientist, right? So then she starts searching for him more in the Wired, and she finally finds him, and then it gives the whole backstory. Um, that this is actually really confusing. But apparently, every little kid has like a latent psychological ability. He called it parapsychological ability, to like have like a unique conscience or something.
Okay, okay.
And like so he sets up this experiment to like extract the kid's conscience. Like he has like a bunch of kids set up, and they put like a little helmet on them, and then like it combines all their psychological ability or latent psychological ability, and the experiment goes wrong, and like it explodes and kills everybody. Like all the kids die, right? And so he's not necessarily filled with guilt, but he decides that like this technology is too dangerous, like it harnesses too much energy or something, and he tries to destroy it. Then it's revealed that this game has been recreated. Like this experiment is happening on the Wire. Like it's been recreated and moved over to the Wire. Like it's no longer in real life. And that's like the game the kids are playing, or one of the games that the kids are playing.
Yeah, and the professor is he's given up on his body, and now he's legitimately just living the wire till his body decomposes.
Yeah. Like he's sick in a hospital, but he's just living in the Wire, because he's trying to enjoy the last moments of his life.
Yeah, you're right, dude. I didn't feel that.
Yeah. So yeah, the machines recreated in the Wire is probably the big reveal. He also calls Lain a blessed child, saying that she's lucky to be who she is, that she's fantastical. That I think that this is the episode they explain, or maybe the other people are explaining, maybe it's a Cheshire cat, that she's manifesting her whole persona there. Other people are just like eyeballs or ears, or like the Cheshire cat himself was just a mouth, because that's the only ability they have. They can't manifest themselves into the Wire the way Lain can.
It starts getting a little more confusing here, and I get kind of lost with a lot of
things. For sure.
Yeah, anyone can get lost on this one. We do get so she talks to the knights in the beginning, and the very end so she's friendly with the knights. They're boys, they're homies. She sees the lasers, and it's agents.
Yes,
and she goes out and confronts them. While she's confronting them, like a bomb goes off in her room, breaking the windows. And that's whenever we get to realize the knights did that. Yeah,
the knights did that. Like they tell them, like, I think they even say, like, because I wrote down the men in black are the knights, but I think he says like we are the knights, but like he just tells them that wasn't us that did that was someone else. So it was legitimately one of the guys that she was just talking to. One of the knights, like they even say like they planted some kind of like virus in your coolant system so your computer will overheat. Like even as it's building up, she's like laughing and talking with them, and like you could see like valves bursting open because her computer's overheating. So yeah, she gets sabotaged by someone online. So someone,
but it's the knights, all right?
Yeah, it is the knights. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So so that happens, and dude. Episode 7 is like 6. Or is it 7?
That is episode 6.
Okay, 7 really gets after it. 7, the big takeaway I got, and I just wrote God because that was like the huge component toward the end of it, but I didn't put anything else between that. Yeah. So episode 7 was really kind of the introduction of what's really happening, and kind of now you can go into different routes on perspective of who's right, who's wrong, and the identity of like who this godlike person is. But I do believe this episode where they start to mention a actual like the religious background and things.
Yeah, they're starting to. This the episode's called Society, but they're starting to bring in this. There's like a recurring symbol. It looks like kind of like I don't know, like a protractor, like something like a compass you measure on a map, right? That's like a recurring symbol. So there's like some kind of secret society out there. Like it even has like a like the opening has like a CEO executive, his secretary walks in and is like, hey, you got an important meeting. He's like, I'll be there in like 5 minutes. And then he gets like a new mail. And when he opens it, it's that symbol.
Yeah.
Right. So like there's something going on. This is like someone who's very affluent. I don't think they've introduced him yet, but he's definitely an important character, like high up in society. Lain also sees it at one point. Or like I think she like picks up a piece of paper, or like maybe it's a computer chip and sees it. Like I noticed that. I don't know if Lain.
It's on a computer chip.
Yeah. Like Lain notices it. They also introduced like a bunch of like weird characters at this point.
They introduced the mother.
Yeah,
they introduced the guy that's laying on like his mattress.
Yeah, he's like a fat dude.
Yeah, and the CEO, and it introduced these. Like these are the 3 ones I saw. They might have introduced.
They have another dude who's like walking around like society with like a computer in his backpack, and he's got like goggles on, and you can see like he's like using the wire but seeing in real life, and he's trying to find the knights. Like he's trying to like get into the knights. Like he's trying to show how like badass he is. There's that. I wrote down that I think the fat dude is the Cheshire cat. I don't know if that ever came to fruition or whatever.
Oh,
But
that's interesting.
yeah, I wrote down that.
He was kind of the mouthy one out of the
Yeah,
bunch.
that's why I thought. Yeah,
Yeah, he was kind of like talking shit.
yeah. Also, they had like an emergency broadcast again saying that like the network was attacked, and it says that this broadcast may arrive tomorrow or yesterday. Like they say that in the warning. Like I have that as a note.
Interesting.
Lane's also like losing it at this point. Like she's like can't distinguish from like what's reality and what's not. Like she's starting to me like going crazy.
Yeah, and she's not the only one.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's obviously her sister.
Oh yeah, her sister.
Is
Yeah.
still going through it, which we'll turn back on that in a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like there's so much stuff going on like all at once. It's like it's really confusing. Like it's unsettling. Like you're kind of unnerved the entire time. Like
Yeah, I mean, and around this time, I did a couple rewatches on these episodes because
yeah,
you had to rewatch a
yes,
couple
yeah,
episodes
for sure.
because you look away and you miss something that might have
Yeah,
been the most important part of the episode.
I didn't necessarily rewatch episodes, but I had to go back 5 minutes and like, okay, what really happened?
Oh, I had to rewatch an
Yeah,
episode or two. So.
yeah. So so it's revealed that the knights are like looking for Lane. Like the guy with the goggles and the backpack or whatever actually is like finds like the secret channel for the knights, and he sees Lane. Like he sees Lane's image, and he's like begging Lane to ask to get into the knights. And at this point, the Men in Black agents like she's walking home from school, and they like roll up in a car, and they're like would you come with us? Like we
Yeah.
promise not to hurt you
Yeah.
or whatever.
And that's what they talk. They go to like who's he who they're working for.
Yeah.
And he basically wants the upgrade. He wants to like get his computer upgraded. So
Yeah.
like Lain apparently knows.
Lane helps him.
Yeah.
And then when he turns the computer on, it's actually that one dude that I'm talking about, the one who gets the night with the goggles. Like he's like, that's when it shows the scene of like him seeing Lane, asking Lane to let him into the Knights. And there's that scene, he shuts his computer off. And then there's like this big reveal to me where he starts asking like do you know who you are?
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Agreed. Yeah. She starts questioning things that are like obvious.
Yeah.
And she's just like she's done with it.
Yeah.
When she was stern, like when she was stern, she was really cool.
The main question, he's asking her, do you know who your mom is? Is your dad real? Do you know his birthday? Why is that? He's like grilling her.
Oh yeah.
And then he says, are you the same Lane as that's in The Wired? And like Lane's like, like kind of breaking down, and then you could tell her persona switches, right? So, and then it becomes the Lane of The Wire that's real stern and starts telling him like, who cares? Like what does it matter? Just like blowing him off after.
Like just done with the conversation.
Yeah.
And you got anything else on 7? Yeah, because I think episode 8 is one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know. The episode 7 ends with that hacker dude dead. He's just like laying in the tracks. Like the dude that Lane saw, like he's dead.
Oh, he's dead. Yeah.
The mom was playing with her son and with the Navi in the trash. Like the mom that got like the Navi from the delivery man. I mean, it's just all sorts of things going on. Like it's hard to keep track of it all.
Yeah, they're dead at this point.
Yeah,
all of them are dead.
No, they're not all dead. The mom's still alive at this point.
Oh, okay.
But the hacker guy with the goggles.
Yes,
is dead.
he's dead.
He's dead. Yes.
Yeah, he's dead.
Yeah.
Episode 8, I believe, is called Rumors.
Yep, Rumors.
So it was interesting because we have this. We get more of a friendship vibe with Lain and Alyssa, and we start to know that they're like good friends.
Yeah.
Well, there is a rumor going around about. It starts off with this like god-looking character, and then we get a nice shot of Mika looking like shit.
Yeah.
She looks like absolute dog shit.
Yeah.
And Lain finds out that her friends are accusing her of being a. So this is where the translation mark. What do they say she's doing to you in subbed?
What is the rumor?
Yeah, what's the rumor?
That her and the teacher are like having an affair.
Well, what's like the text messages Lane's getting? I got on mine, it said peeping Tom.
Yes, peeping Tom.
Okay, I was wondering if that was the same thing. It was like translated differently. But yeah, I got peeping Tom. She's a peeping Tom.
Yeah.
And that's when we get introduced to that Alyssa's actually a really good friend, and she was like texting her saying like, hey, ignore it. They don't know what they're talking about.
Like, I believe you.
Like rumors are just lies, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then we do get a little background on that about there is actually something happening.
Well, not between the professor or whatever. Like, are you talking about something happening between
Well,
Alice and the teacher?
yeah.
No, she's imagining that.
Who's imagining it?
Alice was. Is it Alice or Alyssa?
It's actually
It's Alice.
yeah.
Arisu is what they say
Yeah.
in the dub, and so it's Alice.
Yeah.
No, she's imagining it because she's like in her room, right? And it's like her like laying back, and she's masturbating, and in her mind, it's in her mind, like her imagining the
Oh,
teacher's behind her saying like, we shouldn't be doing this, right? And then behind her, sitting on the bed, is Lain, like watching her.
yeah. Okay, you're right. She is imagining it, and
Yeah,
they do mention that she's imagining it through the whole thing, and that like she's like, I know what you do to have fun by yourself.
yeah,
I know what you're imagining,
yeah,
and it really just like makes their friendship a little. It's like disarrayed after that.
yeah. Well, so now she knows that Lain is actually watching her,
Yeah.
and it's actually really confusing because how's Lain there?
Yeah.
But and it's actually not really Lain because she's being kind of a jerk about it. Like
Yeah.
she's being very cynical. Like even the look on her face.
Oh, she is
Yeah,
very cynical here.
yeah,
So we do get that Lain being cynical and just like the way they drew her face, like it almost like two different characters to be
hmm
honest. But we didn't know it was Lain. But yeah, that was the big thing. And then we get to find out that Lain has these alter egos, and you find out that there's multiple variants of Lain.
yeah. Like even like Lain starts talking to herself. Like she sees herself. Like I think at one point like she sees herself and like starts trying to choke herself out, and then the other Lain even jokes is like, oh, you're trying to kill yourself.
You're trying to commit suicide.
Yeah,
Yeah, she
yeah.
does say that.
And
That was a
and,
great scene.
and she's sitting there choking her other self,
Yeah.
and she's asking her like, how come your body's warm? Why'd I have to feel you? And she says that she's the part of her she hates. She calls the other version the part of her she hates, that she's not her, that I'm me.
No, that was it's a great episode. By the way, this is what
Yeah.
I really like this
Yeah.
because now we start questioning who's
Yeah.
really Lain, and now that makes sense
Yeah.
about whenever they said like I saw you in the club
Mhm,
yesterday,
mhm.
because now we know that there's multiple.
Yeah,
Lains
there's more
running
than one
around.
Lain. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, in this episode, Lain starts hearing God in her head. Like she starts having conversations with God.
Ooh, you're right.
Yeah. Also, I know I mentioned this to you, but I was actually really excited when I heard God talking to Lain because it's got the same voice actor as Aizen in the sub. So
from Bleach.
from
Yeah.
Bleach, yeah. Which
Yeah.
which Aizen's one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it dub, but yeah, so I was like, it's probably Aizen.
You even said that. Yeah, I was asking.
Yeah, which is really awesome. I'm
Yeah.
glad. Good job. Good for them to do multiple voice acting.
Mhm,
So God comes out right here.
mhm.
Right, this is where God's at. Yeah. Well, actually, no. This next episode.
They haven't revealed, like God hasn't revealed himself, but she's definitely talking to him. Like she's having conversations with him. And the very end of the episode, she's talking to Lain and like herself. Lane's talking to herself.
Yeah.
And then the line comes out like, Lain is Lain and I'm me. Like the other Lain
Which
says
is
that to her.
which
yeah.
is like something that it's a recurring theme that
Yeah.
she says that.
Yeah.
And then we get in episode 9, which is really a big history lesson.
Episode 9 was like tripping me out. Like
It was so good. In my opinion. But we get a little dark history about it. It starts off with one of the guys named Venetia Bush, who was part of the Manhattan Project, which I don't know if he really is, but in the show he's like, oh, help with the Manhattan Project, and he really starts going down this history lesson while it's still playing. Lane's still dealing with this identity crisis.
Mhm.
Yeah, we get so Venetia Bush. John C. Lilly was the one that invented this weird they called it. He created the Schumann resonance, or he used the Schumann resonance. He made the chip. I wrote Kiss. I don't know why I wrote that. Is this the episode where she goes on a little date with that boy?
Yeah. You're skipping
Yeah.
I shouldn't say you're skipping over some stuff, but like
I'm
the
just
very-
trying to get the timeline down for them.
the episode starts off with like talking about the Roswell incident, like a UFO crashes, and then like the scene changes to Lain, and this is actually gave me goosebumps. Like I was like, and I was actually thinking to myself this moment, like I'm not too sure if like Lain's a horror anime or if it's just like a psychological thriller, but I legitimately got scared here. She's like in her room. I don't know if she's laying down or on her computer, but she like hears someone, and she's like, "Is somebody there?" And she goes around and looks, and there's like it's basically an alien peeks through the door and looks at her, and like that gave me goosebumps. Like it's like an alien wearing like a striped red and green sweater,
Yeah.
right? Like this is right after the Roswell crash, and then after that it starts talking about like echo projects, memex top secret info projects, secret experiments that the government's doing. Like they're just going down this whole line of like things,
Yeah,
and then they're talking about the resonation.
yeah, it could go in any direction here.
Yes.
Aliens, conscious, anything. It really now at this point it can go in multiple different directions.
Yeah.
And if we went in any other direction, it still would have been pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
So after all this, this info dump on us, it's going on for a minute. They're talking about like Native Americans and doing like psychological experiments, like while like tripping, like it's going into it.
And then we get into
So the kissing that you mentioned, Lain decides to go back to the club, right? She's going back to club Siberia. Siberia, yeah, there you go. And she walks up to that kid Toro.
Well, before that, they go, "Hey, Lain, you left this." And it's like the DJ.
Oh yes.
He gives her an envelope, and inside it's looks like a graph, like a 970s graphics card.
Yeah, it's like a chip.
It's a super small one, and it's really that's where he gets it. And she's like, "I left this. Are you sure? Yeah, you're Lain. You left it here."
Yeah. So then she decides to go up and talk with Toro.
Yeah.
The kid who helped her with the computer earlier.
Who also asked her on a date. In the very first meeting.
Yes. So Lain says walks up to him and is like, "Hey, you wanted to go out with me, right?" And Toro actually says to him, "You're not the Lain that I wanted to go out with." Yeah. And she basically like convinces him to go back to her room to help him with that thing. Like he's like super excited about the computer.
Yeah. That's really why he went back.
Yeah.
For real. Not being sarcastic.
Yeah.
He went back to go see her computer.
Yeah. And so that's where Lain basically confronts him. Like, and this is also a confusing part. Like she's showing the chip and she's asking him like, "Why do I have this? Or, like, why was it given to me?" And he's trying to dodge the questions, but she's saying like, "No, this is." I think it was implied that this is the reason that like some of the kids are deleting themselves, because it has like a memory deletion. Like if you plug it into your computer and you hook up to it, it like deletes or changes your memories in some way. Right. And she's asking me like, what would happen to me? And she even like threatens him by like starting to shove it down his throat.
Yeah. And that's where that whole thing I was saying earlier about like taking the computer chip down.
Yeah.
So yeah, we get that scene and he tries to do a little explaining.
Yeah.
He actually does a lot of explaining, to be honest.
Yeah.
And at this point, I thought he was the one that was like the big bad. I thought he was a grown ass man.
Yeah.
Controlling a kid.
Oh yeah. I thought there was something weird. Yeah. Yeah. She even like asked him if he's a knight, and he's like, "No, but I'm like in contact with them." Like I think the knights are the one that put him up to that, to like give like Lain the chip. And then he decides to kiss him. He's like, "We were on a date, right?" And like puts his gum in her mouth. Like that was him.
Yeah, I mean, I really like this scene because like romance, y'all know that. But what I really like about this is that like it was at the end, he says, "Come on, I'm a boy," and you're a girl. And he just like saw the opportunity and took it. But yeah, and this is also kind of Lain's. This made me feel like Lain's still human.
Yeah.
Because this gets a little later on. It gets more starts to dissolve more into the story. But at this point, she's human still, for what we know.
Yeah, and this is like where it explains more like you're seeing like the disconnect between her parents and her sister. Like they're like acting like her sister's like gone. Like at this point,
fuck,
like
yeah, we don't know what the fuck's going on.
She's like mumbling herself, can't even speak. Like
she is just not that. Like no one gives a shit about her. To be honest,
and her parents don't care either. Like
at all.
Yeah. I even think that I don't know if this is the episode where like I think it is because the Men in Black are asking like, "Lain, are you even the real Lain? Are your parents real?" She goes and says like, hey mom, hey dad, someone said that you guys aren't my parents. That's funny, isn't it?
And she's like, ha ha ha,
yeah,
ha. And they just stare at her.
Yeah, they just ignore her.
They stare at her for a really long
period. And it's just uncomfortable.
It's so funny.
And I even wrote, is Lain adopted? Because that's what it's going for now.
Yeah, it's implying that they're not her real parents.
Yeah.
And this episode ends with the introduction of Masoni Ire, who is the creator of The Wire, what's supposed to be The Wire.
Yeah.
We get the introduction of him, and I guess, I'm not sure, did you show how he died? Dealing with like next to the railroad tracks, things like that.
Yeah.
But he now is in The Wire.
Yeah.
What do you got?
I'm not sure if that's episode 10 or if that's how episode 9 ends. Because I'm writing about him on episode 10.
Yeah, he shows his face in episode 9.
Oh, okay.
And then episode 10 starts off with him.
Okay.
So that's why I drew an arrow from episode 9 to 10, and I wrote God.
Oh, okay.
So
one of the things that I wrote down that I wanted to touch on in episode 9 is one of the things that the Knights are constantly talking about is that they want the truth, right? And that all the truth can be revealed on the wired, and that
Yeah.
truth is justice, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
you're not being lied to. And so I started seeing the parallel between truth, and then the fact that Lane's being lied to,
Yeah.
like her parents. I even wrote the parallel about Lane being lied to and the wired exposing what is the truth.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And it's like typical like hacker status.
Yeah.
Like they really just want the truth and they want
Mhm.
everyone to know the truth.
Yeah.
But obviously it paints targets on your back when you're looking for the truth.
Yeah.
Especially against, this like godlike
Yeah.
entity.
And to me, it gives a reason for Lane to want to help them or be part of the wired to expose the truth. That's what I was getting at, or starting to, the vibes I'm getting here. But yeah, so episode ends. That episode is called Protocol. I know episode 10 is called Love.
Ooh.
Well, you should be interested in this
yeah,
one.
Yeah. Well, I did like the idea of God. I love everything super like when they tie in anime with like religious things.
Yeah.
And episode 10 starts off with this godlike character that's
Mm-hmm.
floating, that's speaking to Lane, and just like just being God, like
Yeah.
in the wire.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, he is the CEO, and he becomes God by creating the seventh layer. Like the wired was protocol number 6, and I guess the data was maxed or whatever, and he created protocol 7 and managed to like insert himself into it.
Yeah.
So when he's like killed by the train or whatever, like he's basically murdered, pushed on the train tracks. He goes to the wired. Like his essence is the wired.
You think he was murdered?
Yeah, I think he was murdered.
You don't think he was he wanted to live in the wire? Like
he had already set it up, but I don't know why they'd throw the train scene in there. Like he could have done it anyway.
Yeah, he could have just jumped. But all right, yeah.
I got the interpretation.
No, well,
he
there was
murdered.
cops there, and there was an investigation,
Yeah.
so there's probably
Yeah.
Yeah. They started getting this idea that Lane no longer needs a body,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is really a point of. It gets interesting because now it's like because this guy dead
Yeah.
doesn't have a body,
Yeah.
and he's just living in the wire. So now
Yeah.
Lane no longer needs a body. They keep
Yeah.
implying that.
Yeah. I even wrote down, is Lane becoming God? Because like she's listening to God, and he's telling her all these things about like being in the wire. That I don't know if it's this episode, but she's saying like people believe in you and you can become God, and everyone's already seen her in the wire. Like she's basically famous,
Yeah.
But she's got 2 alternate personas. So
It might not be in this episode, but there is a scene. No, it might be when she says like, "You're no longer God if nobody believes in you," and he says, "There's one person that believes in me," and she's like, "Who?" And he goes, "You, Lane.
Yeah.
You believe in me."
Yeah.
Because while you can never argue against like the God that created you,
Oh,
because
yes,
you're
yes.
also you were created and you're aware that you were created by that person, there will always be God for you because you by just being created by them makes you aware of them.
Yeah.
And we get a little thing about her dad, like not really being her dad.
Yeah. There's also this thing like she goes to school and like her desk is missing. Like nobody's acknowledging her. Like I think she's like part of the wired at this point, but she's trying to live in the real world.
Yes.
Like she's like waiting to like be handed papers, and the teacher just walks right by her and like ignores her. So no one can see her. And at this point, I'm expecting her to reject the real world. Like she's getting shunned. Like I thought that's where it was going to turn. Like Lane's wants to be part of the real world, but she's being rejected. So I thought in turn she would reject the real world. And just like how God's saying like I love you, like me and you can live together in the wired or whatever.
No.
I thought that's where it was going to go with
Like
this.
do you think she was like rejecting the real world because like that was like the whole game plan was to get Lane to reject the world, and by putting her in this scenario, she's gonna reject it. Ultimately.
And then go to the wired, right? Yeah. Like she goes home and the house is empty. Like her parents aren't there anymore. Yeah. Her sister's like gone. Like all the house plants are dead. So you like get this like you don't know how long it's been like that. Like is her parents even real? Like it's bringing up all these questions, and it's also dropping this info dump of like the Knights. Like they're actually like the Knights Templar from like the 1800s, and they've not even 1800s, but ancient. Kind of like the Freemasons or whatever. They're like a secret organization that's been existing since like the beginning of time, and that they've managed to like hack the secrets, and then they've gone into the wire. Like they can use the brain power they're talking about, the psychological power that's latent in all humans, that they've already figured it out, and that the Knights. They actually call them the Knights of like the Knights Templar of the Eastern Calculus.
So,
yeah.
So you know how they got translated? So whatever you just said, instead of calculus, they put mathematics.
Oh, really?
It got translated like that because I watched it dub, and when I looked at the subtitles, it said calculus. I was like,
Yeah.
that would have sounded way cooler if they wrote that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah.
I
The dad also says goodbye to Lane, like in this episode.
this is the time where she it's really cool. This is a really good scene, man. This is like so sad. So the dad basically goes up and says, Lane, at this point, you already know I'm not your father.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not your dad. But he goes, but I did love you.
Yes.
But he even clarifies, he's like, I love you not because I raised you. I love you because of some other reason. He had a reason for loving her.
Yeah.
And he was just like, it like grew on me, and then I loved you.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't because like I was supposed to or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But dude, that's so. This is the part where I was like hurting, bro. I was like starting to hurt.
Yeah.
Emotionally, obviously. Because I get to, I don't know, man. Like, she loves her dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's just like, I'm not your fucking dad.
Yeah. No, it actually was pretty emotional. I actually like that. I'm glad that he didn't just like I'm done with you. Like I'm walking away. Like you know,
my job's done.
Yeah. Bye. Yeah. So then at this point, Lain decides to go back onto the wire and then finds all the information on the Knights Templar, right? And she leaks it out to the public. Like she puts it all online, public info, right? And then everyone that was part of the Knights Templar is systematically getting murdered, or their suicides are being framed.
I love this scene.
Yeah,
I love it's like this. It's like dark. It's like one of the Knights is a mom, and she's like literally the scene prior to this. She's, let me play with you, son.
She's playing with her little kid,
and like he's like, Mom, it's your turn, and she's just dead.
Yeah.
So that was like really like a really dark scene.
Yeah. They also off the CEO.
Yep.
The guy that got the email. They're off.
The mattress guy.
Yeah, the mattress guy.
The one that's talking about shit that you said is the cat.
Whatever. Yeah, I thought he was the Cheshire cat.
Yeah. And they end that kind of like well, not in that, but they say like, now you're safe.
Yeah.
Now that the Knights are dead, you're safe.
Yeah, the Men in Black come up, up to the room, and they're talking to Lain. She's like, we had to get rid of them. I think he even says there's other organizations like us, like all the Knights Templar around the world are now dead. Like, those are the ones they killed in Japan. I assume that they're murdering everyone else in like Europe and America, right? And at this point, there's one of the Men in Black. He has blue eyes because he takes off his goggles, and then he goes and starts telling Lain that he also loves her. He tells Lain he loves her.
Grown man.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the same way like the fatherly love. Like, the episode's titled "Love." God tells her that he loves her. The Men in Black guy with blue eyes, her dad tells her he loves her, and so
I mean, we could talk about that all day. But episode 11 was just the weirdest episode I think I've ever had.
Yeah,
you said it was based like a music video.
Yeah, I said it's a 10-minute long music video recap with like some weird ass guitar.
Yeah, you're right. It did have a weird riff on there somewhere.
It did serve its purpose, though. I was like thinking to myself because I was watching it, like this better not be the entire episode. It better not be like this. Like I actually skipped forward to it, so I was normal and went back and rewatched it.
It was a hard watch. I had to watch it a couple times.
Yeah,
like I had to go back this way you did it.
Yeah.
So it really did just kind of tie in all the loose ends that we were missing and bring you back to what's really happening.
Yeah, what the purpose of that little 10-minute like music video? It's like recapping like all the episodes, like all the important moments that Lain's been experiencing, like Chisa, jumping off the building, her friends like accusing her of the rumor, like anything that major has been happening, and then it turns out that she's uploading data into her own mind, and so now she has an emulation of the Navi in her own head, right? It also shows the alien again, which
which I put here. Look, Lain is Freddy. I wrote that down. I said, Lain is Freddy, and asked you about it. And you go, oh, maybe it's because she's dressed as Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
So, that was kind of funny that you said that.
Yeah.
So she is dressed like Freddy Krueger.
Just without the weird face. Like she had her own face, but she's like, it was weird. So like the scene is that, she's gonna erase Alice's memory, right? Like Alice is still upset because those rumors of her were leaked. Everyone, she's exposed to everyone that she has the crush on the teacher, right? And so Lain shows up, but she's like, I don't really understand why it was like this, but she's like the alien that it showed earlier, but it's got her face. Like she's even like just peeking around the door, like half face, her bottom half in her hands are like an alien. And Alice is like freaked out, like terrified.
It did kind of spook me.
Yeah, no, I was
I was
feeling
like,
creepy
who
too.
the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it did spook me.
Yeah, no, that was spooky. And so she basically just tells like Alice that she's her friend. Like she likes Alice. Like Alice is the only one that's ever believed her, is her only real friend, you know, and she'll erase the memories for her.
Yeah.
And then she like deletes everybody's memories except for Alice. So Alice remembers that the rumors were leaked and then goes to school and is like freaked out that everyone's treating her like normal.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I got for 11.
She sees, so while she's at school, she sees Lain, and Lain is looking at her, and like Lain gives her like the creepiest ass smile that I've ever seen. Like,
yeah,
and that's how the episode ends.
But so
there's also this other thing, like she's like tripping in like the real world, right? And like Chisa comes over to her and is talking to her, and then the guy who shot himself in the club comes up to Lain, and they're like intersect her at the street, and they're talking to her, and the guy's like, you know, you can go to the Wired anytime you want, right? Like, you have it right there in your hand, and the gun he's holding is now transposed into Lane's hand, and he's telling Lain, you know, how to use it. Oh, the safety's already off. You know, use both hands so you can actually pull the trigger, because it's got a, you know, it's heavy.
Yeah.
You know, and then Lain rejects it. So Lain again is rejecting going to the Wired. She wants to be part of the real world.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So a lot came out in episode 11. What you got anything else on 11?
No, that's mostly what I wrote.
So what most people don't know is that we watch most of the anime together, but this is one of the ones we watched apart for most of the entire show. So we watched 1 and 2 together,
1 and 2,
and then we ended up watching earlier before we filmed episode 12 and 13. So 12 and 13 are pretty fresh.
Yeah,
but we do that. I mean, it was a good reason. It's just because, you know, when we get into episode 12, this is it. Like, they have 2 episodes left to clear up everything.
Yeah.
So now when we get into this, you know,
it's called Landscape.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, so the funny part I thought, because I think it opens up with Taro. Taro is explaining that he kissed an angel.
Oh yeah.
And I thought that was really cool because, you know, she's kind of like, at this point, God.
At this point, yeah.
She's perceived as God, you know, in the Wire. And I think that was kind of funny that she said that I kissed an angel.
Yeah.
We get something interesting with Lain. We get interesting with those guards, or the Men in Black guys. They basically are waiting for payment. Their guy that pays them pulls up, right? Drops off a briefcase, and he says, he's like, what do? Do we just run away now? And he said, yeah, run away to somewhere that has no power poles or no satellite coverage. And he was like, nowhere on the planet exists. And he says, I don't know. You know, good luck, right? They go off, and then one of the Men in Black guys starts having like this heart attack type thing. He's having like a seizure. He starts freaking out, and then he just dies. And then one of the other guys looks into his eyes. And he sees Lain.
Yep.
Lain is like in his eye, like it's microscopic. And then of course the other guy suffers the same fate. So we get the death.
He freaks out, and they both died. Which I actually like those characters. I was surprised that they offed them like that.
I kind of figured there was no way out for them.
Yeah.
At this point, and then Alyssa decides to go visit Lain.
Yeah. She remembers that Lain erased everyone's memories but her. Yeah. So she knows the rumor got leaked, and she knows Lain erased everyone's memories, so she's going to talk to her about it.
Yeah. So she goes to her house, and it looks a shit show.
Yeah.
And it looks like the scene from Metal Gear Solid with like Raiden, or with the blood spatter all over the walls.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, it looks like blood everywhere. It's just destroyed.
Yeah.
And we get this cool scene though. She's walking up the stairs and she sees Mika, and Mika saying beep beep.
Yeah,
beep,
like talking.
Beep. Yeah, just saying beep over and over again, and she's just losing it. And that's whenever Alyssa gets to walk in and sees Lain just like all like wired up.
Yeah.
Just wires all over her.
Yeah.
And her nightgown.
Yeah.
And it begs the question, do you think she's been there the entire time? Like, how long has she been in that situation? We don't even know the last time. I think the last time we ever actually see her outside the real world is whenever she is goes on that little date with Taro.
Yeah, well, or the previous episode, wherever like she gives Alice that creepy smile. Like,
we'll see. Was that her?
I don't know. It's true.
Yeah.
True.
So that's what I'm getting.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
And we don't know if she's. We don't know.
Yeah, which one's which?
Yeah. So we start questioning like which one's the real Lain, but we really don't know. Is Lain even real? And they even just touch on that. So We started getting more information about Lain. So Lain was born in The Wire.
Yes, she's basically like a clone now.
Yeah, she is, and I guess you know what? Now that they say that, I think I can see the resemblance to Neon Genesis. Same thing with the Ray being,
Okay.
yeah. So, but with yeah, she's born in The Wire. She has no parents. She has really no
Yeah,
siblings.
they basically call her a software.
Mhm.
That's all she is, sentient software.
Did I write that down? Yeah. So she was created. She was created. She's a program to destroy the barrier between The Wire and the real world.
Yeah,
That's what she was made for.
yeah.
Yeah, and I wrote that down.
Yep. And then Alice and Lane start having this conversation, and Alice is like terrified of Lane,
Oh yeah, her
right?
heart's beating fast.
Yeah, and Lane's just like telling her like, "You're my only friend. Like you were my friend, even though we're not connected."
Exactly.
Right? Like everyone else in the world like is connected to Lane, and they also go on to this detail about like memories, like that there's different iterations of her and how other people receive her. I don't know if that's like why there's two different versions of her, but she's basically saying you're my friend when everyone else, like, you're the only one I haven't connected to. Like, you have no reason to be my friend.
Yeah,
And that's why. And she even tells her that she loves her.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so she says this. She says all this, and while this is happening, she's basically having like the whole like devil on her shoulder. Allison's like the angel, and she gets this whole tell story, and they're hugging and they're embracing, and then this god,
Yeah.
Ire,
The God from the Wired.
yeah, shows up, and he's like, yo, you're the program, all, and just basically talking her through.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the coolest scenes I think out of the show. She goes, "Well, you're God, right?" He goes, "Yeah." But like, who told you to do these things? Like, wouldn't that make that person God?
Yeah.
And he starts getting this self-aware of like that he's not actually God.
Yeah.
And he starts to like just like lash out, no, I'm God, and he's just questioning himself. So he starts questioning. He becomes self-aware that he's God. And this is where I mentioned it to you, and we were kind of we were like undecided here. I said that she says, "Well, God doesn't have a body," and she
Yeah.
ends up my opinion, she makes him have a body
Okay.
to show that she's God. You're not God. I created you now in real life,
Yeah.
and now I can destroy you by like smashing these on you. But then you said that it was the
Yeah. I believed that because he was rejecting the idea of a body, and then Lane rejects his view of what God is. He then makes himself have a body because Lane has a body, and so he's like metamorphosizing as like this like grotesque monster in the real world because he doesn't care about bodies, right? Like Lane's able to project himself as an image in the Wired, which is herself in the real world. His projection of himself in the Wired is like a human being, godlike entity. But then when he goes into the real world, he's like a monstrous being.
Yeah. And up to your
the interpretation exactly.
Yeah. So we get this scene, and one of the scenes I like is that Allison clips after they have this big battle.
Yeah.
Allison clips Lane.
Yeah.
She starts bleeding, and they don't really touch on that too much. But in my opinion, and like what I believe on this is that because she's bleeding, she knows she's real.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a way to determine whether she's real or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like that scene.
Yeah. So, and even at this point, like Lane's trying to tell Alice that she's sorry, and Alice is just like freaking out, screaming, like doesn't even want to be touched by Lane. Like she's terrified of Lane. Yeah. And that's Lane's only friend. She wants nothing to do with her. And so, at this point, the episode's about to end, and you're just kind of, I wrote now Lane is God because they kill
the real God,
Idu or whatever his name is. Yeah. She kills him like with computers, like he metamorphoses into his real body, and then like Lane like smashes him with all the computer parts in the room.
And the last scene here is that Allison runs away,
mm-hmm.
and Lane is just there like, all I do is cause harm.
Yeah.
All I do is cause problems. All I do is destroy things. All I do is do these bad things. And I wish I wasn't here and all this. And then because she is now God, or even prior, maybe she could have done it. She now realizes that instead of changing the memories of everyone, how about she just erase herself from everyone's memory?
That's basically the episode 13 now.
Ego, which is the name of the episode. Ego. We get this episode called Ego, and it talks a little bit about that. And I'm really glad they had this episode. This episode actually was not needed.
Yeah.
They could have ended with her saying like, oh, I wiped everyone's memory, and then it's done.
Yeah.
They could have done that, and it would have been just as good. But I like that they circled back around and they show all the
Yeah.
supporting characters.
Yeah, the beginning of the episode is just Lain questioning, like, is this me? Like she's talking to herself, having a conversation with herself. She's alone in the real world because she's erased everyone's memories. Like,
Of her.
yeah, of her. Yeah, and like you said, like all the other characters, are their lives are well. Like Chisa is alive. She didn't delete
Yes.
herself like in the beginning of the episode. The two super secret agents are like they're like power line,
Construction
yeah,
workers,
they're
yeah.
like workers with hard hats. The CEO isn't the CEO anymore. He's like
Low leveled employee.
yeah,
They
yeah,
imply it.
yeah,
They imply it. The sister is doing well. She's on a diet. That's all
yeah,
we know about. The parents, they're doing fine. They're talking, and the one thing that everyone's doing is they're acknowledging
yeah,
that there's somebody missing.
yeah, yeah,
They don't know what they're missing. They just keep acknowledging, like they look at the empty chair and they're
yeah,
like, somebody's supposed to be there. Is something
yeah,
wrong? No,
yeah,
or later on with with Alyssa, she sees Lain.
yeah. That's the very ending of the
Oh,
episode.
is it?
That's like the very last scene.
Yeah.
But they start touching on this thing, where Lane's talking with her former self, and she says like, if you aren't remembered, you're forgotten. And so like everyone's, very slightly recognizing that there's someone missing. Like, yeah, the dad and the mom at the table are like looking at where Lane normally sits, right across from her sister. Um,
Well, one thing they did do that I liked is so they brought back the character. They not brought back, but they talked about Taro a little bit, and you saw that like now he has this. When you look at his device, it's called Kid Technology,
yeah,
which to me was really cool because it showed that like maybe now they're being more safe with kids prior to letting kids just jump in the wire.
yeah,
So I thought that was kind of cool. The delivery guy or Siberia guy, we couldn't tell
yeah,
if it was one. I think it was the guy from Siberia. He's no longer dead.
yeah. The guy who like shot himself in the club. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
like basically everyone that had bad endings is now doing okay.
which
and
is
then,
sad, right? That
yeah,
that to me is sad because it's sad in the sense that like Lane was an issue.
yeah,
Like everyone's living good. It's not kind of like the story of like when people are like I wish I was never born and then they never born.
yeah,
Everyone's life is a disarray. No, everyone's life is great without Lane.
yeah, yeah. And so then Lane's still having this crisis with herself.
In
She
the wire.
in the wire, right? She's by herself and she's talking to her other self, and Lane's her. I guess her second half is telling her, "Well, why don't you just become God? Like that would be the easiest thing to do. Then you don't have to do anything. You don't have to care. All you have to do is stand by and watch. You could do that." And then Lane basically tells her like, "Go away," right? And
Yeah.
then she like phases out. So now Lane's just by herself.
Yeah. Well, I think she says go away and she stays for a bit and then goes away.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it starts to get like
It
because she is God. She can
Yeah,
say
she
go
is
away.
God. Yeah, so she rejects her second half, right? The one that wanted her to like fully embrace God and just be on the sidelines and watch. Like you don't have to think or anything like that. She's like, why do you care about being in the human world? Tells her to go away, and then there's this interesting scene. So then like the sky opens up, right? And she looks up, and it's her father.
Oh shoot!
Her
You're right.
father is like looking down from my interpretation is heaven, and Lane rises up and is sitting down across on the table from her dad, and he's just like, next time I'll make you some like really nice tea or whatever he said. He says something like that.
Yeah.
So the interpretation I'm getting from this is that this is basically like the Christian religion where like Lane is kind of seen like Jesus who sacrifices herself to save humanity and then is like taken up to heaven. Like her father is really like truly God, but like she's like the parallel of Jesus who gave herself away to save like everyone else, and then is like not necessarily rewarded, but she's up there with her dad now.
I see. That was my interpretation. I just thought it was a nice scene that her dad was aware of her and he's in the wire now, and he knows that like she was in the wire. He had left some pieces of him in the wire, or maybe she's making this whole
Could be,
scenario
yeah.
where like she misses her. She has no one to talk to, and she just manifests her dad.
Could be
So
that.
she could do. Yeah, either way. I mean, yours is way better than mine. But that's how I got it. She made up her dad to like do this, and that's why her dad doesn't have any other dialogue other than "I'll make you tea," because it's kind of like something that he probably already said multiple times.
Could be.
He doesn't have anything impure, like no like cognitive thoughts that are beyond just
Yeah.
phrases.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a good scene. You're right. I'm glad you brought that up. All right.
After that, it just time skips. Alice is actually
She's a grown up
now. Yeah, married.
Oh well.
It's just assumed married because they're talking about buying furniture for the house
Yeah, so she
with
she has
her
someone,
boyfriend
and
or whatever.
she sees a young girl, Lane. Lane has remained the age 14.
Yeah,
She runs up there and she's like, and this is where I was like, her to say like Lane,
yeah,
but she says, "Hello, do I know you?" And I was like, "Oh man,"
yeah,
that hurt, bro. I was like, dude, I wanted, because she erased everyone's memory.
yeah,
Maybe she didn't erase Allison's this time, or Alyssa's. Maybe she didn't erase her. Maybe she has one person that recognizes her, but no.
yeah,
She says, no, nice to meet you," and then she goes, we'll meet again," and she wanders off, and then
yeah.
we get Lane, and then it cuts to the credits, right?
Yep, credits right there. Yeah. But she says, we will meet again. That's what she says. Lain says we will meet again.
She does say that I'll get to see you your whole life.
Yeah.
Because she can pop in and out.
She can go wherever she wants, yeah.
So, yeah, fuck, dude, what a roller coaster. This anime like makes you question your ability to be an anime lover. It really does. Like, it put me like over the edge sometimes, and it was really convoluted sometimes, and it was really interesting other times.
Yeah.
But at the very end, what we get is a young lady that is now detached herself from reality, and dove deep into the idea of what we call now in this modern day the internet.
Yeah.
And has left her fake persona, like it really dove deep in like Matrix vibes. It came out before Matrix.
It did.
So yeah. You got anything else on this?
No. It's something that maybe could happen in the future, I suppose. It's not necessarily grounded in reality, but you could see like the idea, these ideas have been around for a while. The idea of human consciousness connecting itself.
So yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, make sure to like, subscribe, tell your friends, find us on Spotify. That's all we got, guys.
Yeah.
We'll catch you guys later. Bye.
Later.